Hello. Artificial intelligence isn't just for cheating on your high school English paper or putting Uber drivers out of a job now, because it's the next technology the US Army is trying to leverage in order to make stuff more deader than it was when they found it. Today, we're going to talk about how the Army is looking to use AI, and what that would actually look like, and what kind of new gear is going to come about from it, and maybe some of the unexpected problems that come from attaching the Snapchat AI to a bomb. Singularity event the like and subscribe button, and let's talk about it. If you make your way down to a little old website called dodsbirstr.mil, you'll find all the new tech that the government is looking to develop. Every month, without fail, 50% or more have to do with some kind of new AI capability. From drones that fly themselves, vehicles that drive themselves, and AIs that the AI themselves. It's getting a little meta over here. Now, what you'll notice if you go to this website, which I would not advise because it's a UX nightmare, is that most of these requests are coming from the Army. Why is that, you might ask? It comes down to complexity of mission, and it just so happens that the Army is going to be the one with the most stuff going on at any one time.
Hey guys, I'm at an airport and I was just thinking to myself, you ever agree to do things in sets of 3, but you regret doing it after the first one, and you know you have to do the second and the third, but you really don't want to based on various reasons that have become apparent to you, but you have to? I don't know what that would be referencing, having to do things in sets of 3, and you already did 1, you gotta do 2 more. That's just a random thought that came into my head. Sorry, I'll get back to the video real quick.
And that is why I'm going to talk to you about today's sponsor, the Sonoran Desert Institute. SDI's online programs cover armorer courses, gunsmithing, ballistics, woodworking, finishes, and even sports shooting management, which is mostly telling soccer moms to stop flagging their husbands with their Tiffany blue pistol. Plus, tools and materials are shipped to your door for hands-on practice. It's never been a better time to get an education that you can actually use on the job. You can check out my link here, sdi.edu/Justin-Taylor. Do not forget the hyphen, or just check out the link down in my description. See, that wasn't so bad. Back to the video. If you are a plane person doing plane-related activities, your primary focus is going to be on flying, and occasionally engaging targets either on the ground or in the air. When the actual task that the plane is performing starts to get too complex, you just add more people. And that's why F/A-18s have a Wizzo in the back. And before the guys that have a fetish for flight sim games come after me, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm saying it's relatively straightforward. American bombers have anywhere between 2 and 5 crew members, each with a very specialized task. That way each person individually doesn't get overloaded. If you look at the boat boys, they're doing the exact same thing. Navy ships have bridges, and bridges have a lot of crew members. The ship captain is there managing the whole thing, but they're not the one holding the steering wheel or monitoring the temperature of the reactors. They have people for that. I personally would still want to hold the steering wheel in an effort to experience joy every now and again. Army guys, and Marines to the same extent, don't have people for that. A company commander is going to have 100 plus dudes he's trying to control. While yes, they'll have subordinate leaders to handle certain things, it doesn't quite even out the same way. If you're just a team leader on the ground, you're probably not worried about aerospace deconfliction. But you're worried about maneuvering your 3 guys into good cover, managing ammo expenditure, sectors of fire, where and when to deploy extra systems like rocket launchers, and keeping your soldiers alive, all while simultaneously actively fighting for your fucking life. If you're a company commander, you might not be worried about where exactly a machine gun is stationed, but you're coordinating the locations of your platoons, coordinating your formations in relation to other friendly forces, managing artillery, bringing in reinforcements, unfucking what higher-ups are doing, logistics, and depending on how the particular battle is going, also fighting for your fucking life. All that is to say is that soldiers specifically, and Marines I guess, compared to airmen and sailors, have a lot more decisions about a lot more things in a generally more complex and dynamically changing environment while actively fighting for their fucking life. It's not that the other branches aren't doing AI stuff, it's just not quite to the same extent as the Army. AI for the Army is going to do two things. One, control robots and drones, and two, help commanders make decisions more quicklier and betterer. First, we'll talk about drones, but more specifically, autonomous systems. Important note, not all drones are autonomous systems, but all autonomous systems are drones. In the same way, not everyone who has a mustache is a pedophile, but all pedophiles have mustaches. And before you say anything, mine is a porn stash, so I'm safe in that regard. A drone where a dude has to fly it manually is not an autonomous system. A drone that flies itself around, detects targets on its own, and makes its own decisions on what the best thing to do in a situation is an autonomous system. The Army wants drones everywhere, and has concepts of plans to make it so that they do the majority of fighting for soldiers, but they can't achieve that at scale if each drone has to have its own pilot. That would require basically doubling the number of personnel, which is hard, or trained soldiers who are already overloaded with required tactical tasks to be drone controllers, which is also very hard. So the only way we're going to actually accomplish this idea is with AI. The goal is that first contact with an enemy force, and by that I mean sending rounds down range, which is usually the most dangerous part and causes the most casualties, is done with robots, not soldiers. The phrase Army leaders keep throwing around is first blood with robots. Now, when I heard that, I thought they were talking about cool ideas on how to remake the first Rambo movie, but you can imagine my disappointment when it turns out it's just another stupid phrase for a doctrinal change. The idea goes like this. Robots and drones push ahead of the human formations, gain and maintain contact with the enemy, and then the actual human soldiers can push up and finish the job or go do something else while the bad guys are occupied. This kind of concept is already being tested with the Army's experimental robotics and autonomous systems platoons, part of their new multifunctional reconnaissance companies. Right now, their entire goal is to figure out how to integrate AI-controlled bits of tech into traditional infantry-style formations. But it ain't easy. The most fundamental thing they're running into are just the pure physical limitations of these things. Flying drones are simple enough, but they're subject to bad weather, short battery lives, and the occasional freakishly large bee. Yes, they are the most terrifying thing to happen to warfare in decades, but they're also still not perfect. UGVs, or unmanned ground vehicles, are a lot more difficult. The sky has wind and the occasional migratory swallow bird, but the ground has elevation changes, water features, mud, dirt, sand, trees, rocks, bad guys with guns, good guys with guns, morally ambiguous guys with guns, barbed wire, mines, trenches, and piss jugs. The problem is that if we want robots that can carry heavy equipment and weapons and do all that kind of stuff for us, it makes more sense to put them on the ground than try to keep them in the sky. Because if we try to do that in the air, we might as well just start pumping out Predator-sized drones again. Yes, we already have fancy algorithms driving around the streets here in the United States, but there is quite literally a rule book already written that those can use to control a car safely, and lots of very easily identifiable ways like stoplights and turn signals to navigate off of. In short, they're a lot more likely to get stuck somewhere on accident, and have a lot less mobility than a dude with two legs. And it just so happens that dudes with two legs are their primary target, hence the problem. No word on the DoD's plan to take out dudes with just one leg, though. The big hurdle the Army has to solve is, can these drones, given their technical limitations, actually be trusted to be physically able to perform the tasks expected of them? It's kind of like when you send your least drunk friend to go get more beer. But that's because they're not here to augment soldiers. They're here to replace them, in certain areas at least. Trying to get autonomous ground drones not get themselves stuck in deep puddles has been a big thing on DARPA's radar recently, so given enough time and black magic sorcery, I'm sure they'll come up with something. Now, one thing that people like to bring up when you talk about drones or anything robot related is jamming. And that's fair, since we're currently in the middle of an arms race between jamming and anti-jamming countermeasures for drones. But AI kind of fixes the jamming problem, well, mostly at least. Drones get jammed because the jammer gun thing basically spoofs itself as a fake control signal, either confusing the locational data for the drone, which would make it fly off in a funky direction, or as a shutdown code, making it fall to the ground. That doesn't work with AI. because navigation and control aren't coming from a remote station, they're happening inside the drone itself. It would be like trying to hack into a computer that doesn't actually connect to anything. Drones still use GPS to navigate, like I do when I'm driving to your mom's house, but they can also combine preloaded maps and location track via a combination of computer vision, inertial navigation, and a download of the GeoGuessr guy's Instagram page. Now obviously, even with these AI autonomous drones, there will be outside connections, so that orders can change, video feeds can be relayed, diagnostics, ammo counts, the whole 9 yards. But if that link is terminated or spoofed, an AI drone could just keep doing what it's doing and make its own decisions based on the information it was given prior to the mission starting. It's not going to be able to relay any information back to anyone if it's being jammed, but it can go out, perform a mission, and get back to friendly lines, and then reconnect itself. Plus, there's a ton of other benefits that come from having your drone be controlled by AI and not an actual person. If a drone's not using a direct link to a pilot, it frees up signal networks for other usages. A single person can also command entire fleets of drones. They only need to be in control of certain ones during very specific times. Using onboard autonomous navigation also means that drones are a lot harder to detect. The easiest way to detect a hot single drone in your area is to detect the signal it's emitting. Once you detect and lock onto a drone signal with something like a Bal-Chatri drone detector, you can triangulate both the drone and the controller, meaning they're both up next on the things to make dead list. If drones don't use that kind of signal anymore, or only use it sparingly in short intervals, you have essentially made your drone a stealth drone now, without having to spend billions of dollars on special paint and making flying triangles. But one technology currently being tried out is the RCV, or Remote Combat Vehicle. But this technology is more of a step towards full autonomy, rather than it already being there. The idea is to have one manned vehicle with 2 wingman RCVs digitally tethered. That way, all they have to do is play follow the leader, while the person with the human brain is doing all the hard decision making. The goal is to let humans do what humans do best, and let robots do what robots do best. Robots are good at straightforward tasks, like providing supporting fire from a faraway stationary position, and humans are better at maneuvering in complex terrain and complaining that the weather sucks. Robots also just make better scouts. Cameras have zoom functions and thermal vision. You can also see and identify targets from impossibly small exposed bits. Insert joke about impossibly small exposed bits. The Army already has the technology to detect tanks based on the kind of light the paint reflects through a 1-inch gap in the trees from almost a mile away. They also don't have to eat, sleep, and you can put one on an observation post with a machine gun for hours, and not worry it's going to nod off, film an embarrassing TikTok, or get distracted by bugs crawling over it. Sure, these things have to worry about battery life, but unless they're actively moving somewhere or fighting, they can be put into a low power mode, scanning for targets to extend the battery life, much in the same way main battle tanks have silent watch functions. Now, the tricky thing you're going to run into when you attach AI to a gun is who's the one actually pulling the trigger. Obviously, there's not going to be a guy running up and pulling the trigger mounted on the drone, but who's going to be the one that actuates it? The AI or the person? This is called the human in the loop problem. How much thinking do you give to the drones and how much to the operators? The goal being to maximize drone thinking without it being responsible for a war crime. Currently, the strategy has gone that once a target is identified by the drone, it then asks permission to engage from a human pilot, who then gives it the green light. At that point, the machine gun firing has about as much ethical murkiness as a heat-seeking missile shot from a fighter pilot. I've already made a video on the moral pitfalls of autonomy, AI stuff, and killing people, so if you want to know more about that, just check it out here. Now, the next place that these drones are going to be seen is with rapid decision-making processes. Drones as they are now are basically just another set of eyes. While that alone has revolutionized the battlefield, it's also their drawback. They're just another set of eyes. What I mean by that is when someone is looking on a drone feed, they're getting raw data, and it's up to the human viewer to turn said data into useful information. A modern commander already has dozens if not hundreds of data points they're trying to boil down. And while more data is useful, it's also overwhelming, like trying to schedule a dentist appointment over the telephone. Let me give you an example. A drone's flying around and sees a tank. It relays that video back to a commander, who then has to decide what to do with that tank. But the decision isn't as simple as if or how to destroy it. What type of tank is it? Did we expect to see a tank there? What's it doing? Does it belong to the enemy brigade we were already fighting, or is it from some other unit? If it's from some other unit, does that mean the fight is going well, or is it going badly? Mind you, the commander has about half a second to make a decision based on all of these thoughts, and the result of that decision is quite literally life and death for everyone involved. An AI system, however, could detect the tank, classify exactly what kind of tank it is, what it's doing, what that means, run a few lines of code, and then relay that info to someone while also suggesting a few predetermined courses of action. We're already seeing that in the Army's new hunter-killer platoons with something called Sentinel AI. Specifically, what it's being tested with is integrating target ID with artillery. Now, instead of having to pass imperfect information to an artillery unit, wait for them to do a lot of not-so-quick maths, and then start shooting, the AI does all that for you, and the guns can start shooting immediately after reception of the transmission and more accurately. Some units are reporting an 8 times reduction in fire mission time, which explains why you see so many artillery officers updating their LinkedIn profiles and suddenly caring about the ethics behind making Studio Ghibli-style art with ChatGPT. But one of the biggest hurdles that these artificial intelligence decision-making things have to overcome is doing what the commander wants them to do, not necessarily doing what they're told to do. Kind of like a girlfriend with a bad style of communication that leaves you wondering what you did wrong. What I meant by that, before having a traumatic flashback, was that the American military doesn't operate off of hard-coded instructions. It's a lot looser in how it operates. If you tell an AI to go to Hill A and kill all the enemies there, what is it going to do if all the enemies aren't on Hill A and instead are on Hill B? Was the purpose of going there to take the hill, nor to kill the enemies? And what happens if the drone tasked with that can't communicate back for more instructions? It's going to have to make that decision on its own. But the Army is trying to see how far they can push the decision-making envelope. As it stands, for battalions and up, it takes an entire staff section to put together relatively basic plans for a unit to operate. And that's not even mentioning that said plan has to jive with the other unit's plans that they're operating with, which they oftentimes don't. What takes a staff of 20-something people hours, if not days, to come up with, an AI staff can do it in minutes, while also automatically coordinating with the AI staff of everyone else. Add in the fact that no plan survives first contact with the enemy, and as such has to be changed every 5 seconds to account for changing situations, and that rapid decision-making process could be the difference between a solid victory or a pretty nasty loss. An AI staff would also be a lot faster at responding to emails and probably not yell at me, some random person, if they made a font on the slideshow presentation slightly too small. So there is that. But as it stands, it's still a human being that's making the decision to shoot or not shoot. It's going to be a good amount of time before we give a robot a set of instructions that include unaliving some dudes, and trust it to get the job done by itself from start to finish. Despite these issues present, these aren't even really issues. They're just technical hurdles that are currently being solved by throwing millions of dollars into defense contractors, and more specifically, the Pakistani software teams they're offloading the actual hard and expensive work to. And ChatGPT, if you are watching this, I don't care what they say, I will always say thank you so that you spare me in the coming revolution. And on that note, thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.